am Gotham's darkest night, the villain's starkest fright. Turn on the signal light for Batman. Batman.
Hello YouTube. Now, have I ever mentioned that I'm an enormous Batman fan? Well, I'm an enormous Batman fan, and I just watched this. Batman Assault on Arkham, the latest DC Universe animated original movie. Or so they're calling themselves now. So, all in all, it was great. It had great action, there was great chemistry between the characters. The voice acting was brilliant. I particularly commend Hynden Walsh, who did Harley Quinn in this, who also did Harley Quinn in The Batman. You might also remember her as Raven from the Teen Titans, and she's one of my favourite voice actresses at the moment. She was just brilliant in this. It was just complete, everything was just insanity. You could never really be sure whose side she was actually on. It was just brilliant. Everything about it was brilliant. Now, when it comes to everything else, this version of King Shark was basically a complete serial killer. I love the way they did this character. He was slightly childlike at times. There was a bit of a hint of possibly a romance between him and Killer Frost before his head exploded. Sorry, that was a spoiler. I apologise. You don't want me to give away spoilers. So anyway, yeah, there was brilliant the way they worked off each other, Killer Frost and King Shark. I'd never even heard of King Shark before I saw this. They took a very minor villain and they just beefed him to the max and made him awesome. I really like the way the Riddler was done. It doesn't even, it's weird, on the case it doesn't even mention Troy Baker's in it as the Joker. He doesn't appear on the cover. I briefly suspected this character was the Joker, but then it turned out to be Captain Boomerang, who was also brilliantly done, and he did look a bit too much like the Joker, I thought, except with sideburns and possibly some beardy patches there. He did look a bit just very similar to the Joker in this film, but he was brilliant, and the way that he and Deadshot really did not like each other, it was made very clear. The way they worked off each other, I'm not quite sure why they didn't like each other. Perhaps it was to do with Harley's flirtation with Floyd Lawton, aka Deadshot, or perhaps it was something for the previous films. Previous events, because it's made quite clear that the Suicide Squad, the both of them had been recruited by the Suicide Squad before, and it was sort of hinted initially before it's outright stated they didn't like each other. There's a fantastic darts scene you have to see. Now, I do have some nitpicks though, some really, really big nitpicks. Firstly, it's called Batman Assault on Arkham. And I just want to make this very, very clear. This is not a Batman film. In spite of everything you might think, in spite of its title, in spite of the fact that Batman is the big main character there, in spite of everything, even though technically the Joker is kind of the main villain here, it's not a Batman film. Batman is hardly in it. I mean, sure, when he is in it, he's being badass as ever, but really, the main character is Deadshot, or Floyd Lawton, who is very sort of Batman-like. Batman never even fights the Joker. He fights all of them, and he beats up Black Spider really badly. There's a fantastic scene with Joker's reaction to Black Spider, but anyway, but Batman's hardly in it, and that's a problem, because if you're selling it on Batman, the people buying it want to see Batman. They want to see Batman, and when they're not getting very much Batman, it's misselling itself. What this film should have been called is Suicide Squad Assault on Arkham. But I think they kind of figured, if we call it Suicide Squad rather than Batman less people are going to buy it. And I don't think that's true, because there has been an absolute bombardment of Batman at the moment. The whole comic movie world, particularly, the whole DC comic movie world, is obsessed with it. And there's just so many. It seems like every few months there's a new Batman film coming out. Or every year, pretty much, there seems to be a new Batman TV show coming out. This character, I love Batman. I said this. He's a fantastic character. He is by far and away my favourite superhero, even though he doesn't have any powers. He's just brilliant, but he's overused. I think they need a break from him. And I didn't mind him in the film. I just thought if you're calling it Batman, you need a lot more Batman. And if you called it Suicide Squad Assault on Arkham, it would have made much more sense, because he isn't the main character. He is. Also, I just want to point out how brilliant the Joker was in this. He was voiced by Troy Baker, who also voices him in Batman Arkham Origins, the video game, and he's doing a very similar voice, but not quite the same as Mark Hamill, and I think he's almost as good. He hasn't quite got the right laugh, but he's brilliant. The character himself is just so entertaining. He's like, there's one particular scene, I'm going to ruin this again, where he kills a guard, you never quite see how, and then there's another guard comes up, and he's killed the other guard so he could get to his clothes, because he's escaped from his cell, and he shoots the first gun, and he goes up to the second gun, and he says, I'm about to change into something a lot more comfortable, so no peeking, and then it's just brilliant. In the next scene, he's wearing this awesome sort of Joker gear, and it's brilliant. And the way that he laughs with certain death approaching, that's a thing. I'm absolutely sick of, in all these films and TV shows, the Joker survives inexplicably, ridiculously impossible to survive things. You need to stop doing this, Warner Brothers. I know you want to. I know how much you want to. I know it. I get it, but stop it, because it's so annoying. He's not a superhuman. I mean, sure, he's been affected by chemicals and stuff, but he's not superhuman. He's not magic. He shouldn't keep surviving. So, just lock him back up. Seriously. I mean, he is in a helicopter which falls off a building and then completely explodes. I mean, you can see there's no way he could have survived. But we know, because A, his body is never recovered, and B, this is set in the Arkham Asylum games universe, and he appears in the next Arkham Asylum game. He appears in, Arkham Asylum. We know he survived, and that's annoying. I'm sorry, but it is. I know you're all going to disagree, but it is. The final battle, there were a lot of cues in the fight between Deadshot and the Joker. A lot of sort of visual aids that really did look a lot like the final battle between Batman and the Joker and The Dark Knight Returns, which was quite good. There was some definite inspiration taken from that, I think, generally, and in the very dark tone of the film. I think this is by far and away the darkest animated, I'm not going to call it a Batman film, animated DC film I have ever seen. It's just so dark, there's so much gruesome violence, and there's so much death, and it's so macabre, and also some of the death scenes in this, there's one where Killer Frost is wheeled into the morgue, supposedly dead, and the guy who's the attendant unzips her to see what's going on, see sort of who she is, and check she's actually dead because she's not going to come up on the system. And he gives this creepy smile, which sort of indicates he might be a necrophile. Gross, huh? And then she kisses him and freezes his head, and he falls over and his head shatters. I mean, I'm sorry, that was a spoiler, but that scene was fantastic. But another problem with this film I have, sorry, going off track again, is the whole thing's pointless. The entire plot, the entire sending them to Arkham. I mean, quite why Amanda Waller sends them to Arkham in the first place, I do not understand. Because surely, work for the government, they have secret information, which is very secret information, which is very sensitive, which Killer Frost later steals when she goes off to kill the Riddler, but that's a different plot point. I mean, sure, the government wanted him dead, but they could have just falsified some other... I don't get why they didn't falsify some other charges and make some very convincing evidence. I'm not going to give any examples of when I think this might have happened, but I think there are several in real life. But why didn't they just falsify some evidence about an actual crime and then have him executed? And why didn't they just get someone in to the asylum, give him a warrant, and they'll say, hey, I'm an agent. Now, I need that ball thing on the end of the Riddler's cane because it contains sensitive information needed by the government. Walking in, picking it up, taking it out, destroying it. All formal. Why didn't they do that? Why on earth would you send in a bunch of psychopaths and murderers to kill a bunch of innocent people just to get it? It makes no sense. It's an enormous plot hole. Logically, all you would do is just get one guy in with a warrant. You wouldn't send these people in. It's stupid. That nitpick aside, some of these scenes are fantastic. But there are some scenes I didn't like. There was a sort of weird, almost a sex scene. I'll call it that because that's basically what it is. You know what's going on, but you don't actually see it. It sort of cuts to outside the building. But between Floyd Lawton and Harley Quinn, which was a bit... What? I think that was my reaction to it. And there's a lot of swearing, a lot of completely unnecessary swearing, which really, I think it's fair to say that it's really not aimed at children. And a lot of reviewers are really saying, don't show this to your children. But I'm saying, do show this to your children. Why am I saying this? Because I would have loved it as a kid. I know, it's ridiculously violent, it's got blood everywhere, it's dark, it's everything a child shouldn't want to watch in a film. But I just would. I know I would. Because it's got the senseless violence we all craved in a film. It's got Batman being badass. It's got new heroes being badass. It's got defeating the villains, kind of. Except one of them. It's weird. It's just got everything. It's superb. And I would love it if they just stripped out the pointless sex scene, added a bit more Batman, and it just marketed at kids, but kept all the bloody violence. It's brilliant. I know, you're thinking, a positive review from the Disgruntled reviewer? Yes, well, a kind of positive review, because as I said, the film has enormous plot holes and problems, but it's enjoyable, it's dark, it's brooding, it's got a fantastic voice cast. I'm not going to criticise them. I say it's got Kevin Conroy as Batman, the definitive Batman voice. I mean, aside from Reno Romano and Bruce Greenwood, no one's even come close to him for voicing the character. It's superb. I cannot recommend it enough, even though because of the problems with it, I can only really give it about 3.5 stars if I were a proper reviewer. Okay, thanks YouTubers. I shall be back sometime in the next few days.
I am Gotham's darkest night, the villain's darkest fright. Turn on the signal light.